Have I ever told you guys how much I just don't like Facebook? I think I have. I've made several videos about why I don't actually like Facebook and why I totally despise the platform. While I do have a Facebook account, and that's literally there just to converse with family, people that refuse to step away from Boomerbook, I don't like Facebook. And let me explain to you why I don't like Facebook. I'm working on a video regarding Microsoft and the really evil history. It's kind of like the Traffic Hub video we just did, like an hour-long something, and also like the Metal Gear video that I've been hyping up forever at this point. This is a long video that I'm working on that covers the anti-competitiveness, the what you say, the monopoly history of Microsoft. Now, if Microsoft wrote the book on how to run a fucking monopoly back in the day, Facebook has written the encyclopedia and the actual guide on how to be one of the most anti-competitive companies on the planet. Now, if you don't know Facebook, all right, Facebook is a social media service that a lot of people use, okay? Tons of people use Facebook. It is not dying anytime soon. Facebook is a very active social media service that a lot of people in the mainstream public, the normies, if you want to call them, use. Facebook is not just Facebook. Facebook is WhatsApp. Facebook is Instagram. Facebook is a bunch of other services. What Facebook does is it goes out and buys a lot of these services. And time again, lots of people have called out Facebook for being anti-competitive. And one of their biggest responses is, well, there are other services, but then people conveniently never follow back and tell them, listen, just because there's tons of other services doesn't exclude the fact that when Facebook buys a service, they piggyback off of Facebook's massive infrastructure and suddenly swallow the competition itself. WhatsApp is successful because WhatsApp has an entire Facebook cloud behind it, which, guess what? Most other services don't. Literally by brute force power, they can win, and by brand awareness, they win. That's how Facebook operates. Now, if you don't know, TikTok is going through that ban phase. It's going through a pretty tumultuous time for itself. And a lot of this has been spewed with a bunch of narratives that are true, but also not true at the same time. Listen, does TikTok spy on people? Everyone spies on everyone. That's how it works, okay? That's how social media is. If an app is free, guess what? Who's the product? Say it with me. You, me, we're the product. Nothing else. How do you think they make cash? They have a giant farm of AI content, of user-generated content that they force their AI, that they analyze trends through, that they work machine learning on, and eventually find out how to hyper-advertise against the users that are uploading to them anyways. They have found a way to make marketing so effective that it is almost guaranteed to work as it's deployed. That's how they are profitable. That's how it works, okay? We are all a product. We all get spied on. It's just not for our personal lives or anything. It's literally so that they can sell shit right back to us. Now, TikTok has been thrown under the bus for it, and listen, there's been a lot of evidence. There's been a lot of circumstantial evidence, but I would say that it's probably more so evidence, personally, if you ask me, that TikTok may in fact be spying. TikTok is basically a social media service that hails from China, the country with a social credit system. And there's a lot of stuff you can say about how bad the Chinese government is. Yes, trust me, they are bad. They have done some terrible things. And it's no doubt that if the Chinese government ever asked TikTok to give them data on any of its users, they would have to comply as per China's surveillance laws. People conveniently like to omit shit like this, but guess what? It's the grim reality of what we face. Now, because of all that, TikTok is being thrown away. Its U.S. operations face a ban. And the ban seems imminent. And because of that, guess who came in? Before the corpse was, before the ravens, before the crows were picking at TikTok's corpse, Instagram stepped in, and they released something called Instagram Reels, or at least announced it. If you haven't seen Instagram Reels, there's a great website hosted by them that pretty much details how much of a copyright infringing tool this is on TikTok. It's so bad that just going onto their website, looking at their UI mockups and showing you what it's going to look like, there's one print on there that exactly matches the UI of TikTok. It's so blatant that I wouldn't be surprised if ByteDance, the owner of TikTok, files a lawsuit against Facebook. It's that evident. It's so bad It's so obvious what Facebook is trying to do. They found out that TikTok, which was this year's largest growing platform, not just this year's, but last year's as well, and they figured out that, listen, if we're going now that our competitor is facing severe that's facing themselves that's facing a ban, we can step in and take over. And this is where I get to the anti-competitive nature. Facebook, all they have to do is take an idea, clone it, create it, publish it, and they will grow literally because of how much brand awareness Facebook has and how much of an actual system they have behind the scenes that powers the tools that they create. Facebook is just creating a tool like TikTok. No extra work done, nothing extra. They have created another TikTok, a clone of it, if you will, and are now pushing it onto the masses out there. Now, you may wonder what's so wrong about that. Well, let me tell you what's so wrong about that. It's fucking anti-competitive, and it really exposes what this whole ban was about anyways. You know, ladies and gentlemen, let's just be real about it. If you've ever seen Chinese internet, you will know that it bans everyone from outside. All foreign entities, pretty much, are banned in China. Unless you start caving into the system to the point where your morals, your ethos are pretty much thrown under the bus, they won't let you in. One of the biggest examples was actually looking at when Apple had to ban VPN applications from China. If you don't know what VPNs do, VPNs basically tunnel and encrypt your data so that outside parties can't see it. Obviously, this would be a threat to the Chinese Great Firewall and their government from spying on its citizens. So Apple had to comply with China law to get rid of VPNs. Now, it wasn't morally okay that they did that. It was totally against freedoms. But in order to operate in the country, they had to comply with the laws. And that's how it worked. If you don't comply with simple laws like that, good luck operating in that country. This is exactly the reason why most US tech firms just don't operate. They don't have the freedom or anything to do so. Now, that's wrong. 100% that's wrong. I don't agree with that. But because of this TikTok thing, don't let it dissuade you that the same thing is roughly happening over here. A Chinese company comes into US space and becomes one of the biggest applications overnight. Do you think for a second that U.S. surveillance, that the National Security Agency, that tech firms here didn't raise an eyebrow to that at all? They looked at that and said, listen, this is a threat coming from the outside to in. And they made up a lot of these claims. There was a lot of stuff passed around with national security violations or user data farming, when conveniently people are supposed to forget that these are the same companies, Facebook, Twitter. A lot of these big social media companies are the same ones that also farm user data. All right, this is how it is. This is how the industry works. It's a fucked up industry if you get down to the core of it, but this is how it works internationally. And the biggest reason I'm making this video is we're kind of hitting a moment where people are led to believe completely different things, and people are not supposed to connect the dots and figure out that what's happening internationally is the same shit all abroad. This is simple tech dominance. This is simple bullying if you think about it, and it ultimately hurts us as a consumer base. Imagine for a second, 10 years in the future, you've got big superpowers on the front. You've got the United States, you've got China, you've got the United Kingdom, you've got India, right? All these countries are independent of themselves. Now, to think about it, TikTok is banned in India and it's facing a ban in the US. Because of these bans, we've already seen in the US that a US tech firm has made its own version of TikTok. Who's to say an Indian tech agency won't arise and build their own TikTok? So now you've got 3 TikToks that pretty much separate all these countries into and of itself. And why I'm making this video is the internet was a tool that was devised to connect people together. But now we've seen corporate greed kick in and absolutely take away that connection in favor of who can farm from the data the most, who can take the new oil industry and monetize it the highest that they can. It's gross, if you ask me. It's wild, and it's crazy how many people just aren't connecting the dots over here. Like I said earlier, if Microsoft is the one that wrote the book on tech monopoly, guess what? Facebook is the company that wrote the encyclopedia. They wrote the fucking guide. They wrote the bait. This is an apex company when it comes to that kind of nonsense. And if you don't believe it, look more into the history of Facebook. It gets fucking wild. There's a reason why they completely dominated the other tech industry, the other competition they had in the social media sphere. Facebook is not just a social media company anymore. They're an AI developer. Fuck, they own parts of the internet at this point. It's crazy how massive this company has gotten. You know, when you hear about people talking about breaking up data companies, this is the company they bring to the forefront, and they make a pretty compelling case when you look at what Facebook does and what it does behind the scenes. And we're not even going to talk into how it treats its employees, how it handles government, how it does any of that. We're just focusing on how they pretty much go into multiple ideas of social media, capture each one, and then push their companies to the top, so to speak. It's a wild rabbit hole. Let me tell you, it's Facebook. And this whole like TikTok ban, ever since I've seen this new Instagram Reels, I can exactly picture why it happened. For the first time in the United States, the tech companies were actually fearful of outside foreign influence because for the one time they got beaten at their own game. And now you have one of the most free countries in the world slowly becoming like the people they criticize, the Chinese government, in terms of how they handle tech companies and how they handle user data. It is what it is. Competition is dead, motherfucker. Monopoly is where it's at. And it's not something to be laughing about. But ladies and gentlemen, that's all I really had to talk about regarding today's like TikTok video, regarding today's like Instagram Reels. As somebody in this sphere, I had to mention it. You know, this video reminds me of when like Kit Boga covered the VPNs, so to speak, right? When he talked about that. To me, this almost falls into the same lineup, right? At this point, consider this video as a part one, as a primer to something else that I'm coming up with, talking about Linux in specific. At this point, we have to cut the cord on our dependence with a lot of these social media companies and these proprietary tech companies out there. We have to start using much more open standards. We have to start using much more open systems, because I think this year, at least this event, is probably the pivotal like fulcrum point, the actual point where you can figure out, you know, what these companies are truly about, what they go for. And it's not about the freedoms, it's not about anything. It's about monetizing the shit out of their user bases and whatever rights they have regarding their data, fuck all that. That be damned. That's what we need to talk about. That's what we need to cover. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been the TikTok ban. Sorry if I went on a billion tangents. I'm really passionate about this kind of shit. I really am. Like, this is, if you could have me talk about this stuff for an hour. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, this is me, Mutahar, and I am